Eternal Strands was a very surprising one as I hesitantly dove into the world, environments, story, character developments, and dialogue. Had no idea that I was going to enjoy the game as much as I did. This is a diamond in the rough in an industry that seems to be taking nosedives into oblivion at times. Thank you, Yellow Brick Games, for this labor of love. To kick things off, what is Eternal Strands? This is an action-adventure game with RPG elements and a Monster Hunter-esque feel to it. You play as a battle mage named Bryn, and you find yourself in the beginning of the story as a new member of a group known as Weavers. Weavers are essentially very talented and skilled nomads that are trying to help rebuild a torn and corrupted enclave. The enclave is the world in which you get to explore and fight through as you uncover the mysteries and history of what exactly happened to the enclave and why it is in such bad condition. The current enclave in which you get to explore is a result of what is called the Surge. Before the Surge, there were industries, settlements, and livelihoods. It becomes your main responsibility to use pieces of history and gather evidence that you find through quest and free exploration to find out what happened and what it was like before the aftermath of the Surge. The exploration itself was more than satisfying. It did get repetitive, but not to the point that I did not want to go exploring, because each time you go to an area, there's always an epic encounter. This is where those Monster Hunter vibes show a little bit in this game. You get to rinse and repeat big boss fights with the larger-than-life creatures that give you specific materials to help you forge and upgrade your weapons and armor to fight and defend against specific elements. The combat and fights are at a significantly smaller scale than Monster Hunter, but to be fair, the game is in no way trying to replicate that big of a scale. The exploration and gameplay loop is definitely unique enough in its own right. For example, there are weather conditions that change each time you go exploring and come back to base camp. The epic encounter or big boss fight that you can engage in changes also, and there is a day-night cycle as well. All of this can affect some quests and whether or not you can do them right away, so I found myself doing quests I could do, then come back to base camp or the main hub, which in turn would change the weather, time of day, and the epic encounter, so that I could either continue a quest step from a previously started quest or start a quest that I couldn't start before. This made questing, so to speak, feel more organic and authentic rather than just a box to check off the list of chores that needed to be done. It made it feel a lot less monotonous. The story and cast of characters bring a very charismatic vibe that pulls you in and makes you care about each individual and what they have to offer in terms of abilities, insight, guidance, and story arcs, to the intricacies of the unfolding mysteries you get to be a part of. With that being said, the writing can be a little less than desirable, but with the ability to choose dialogue pieces for Bryn to say things in a different manner, it covers up some of that unwarranted dialogue. The character development and the way characters form relationships and interact with each other is pretty on point. There was one quest where Casman, the Weaver's quartermaster, is essentially going insane, and you go on a few of her companion quests to find the reason why this is happening to her. During the quest, you discover that this insanity is a disease related to her race, the Kashar. While tirelessly looking for a solution by studying and better understanding the Kashar race and culture through these companion quests, you finally find one. You confront Casman about how strange she has been acting, convince her to open up about how she has been feeling, and present the potential solution to her just to have her not accept it at first. As a player, I was pretty invested at this point and truly felt as if I was Bryn trying to help Casman, similar to when you read a book, get lost in its world, and feel as though you're actually a part of it. Eventually in the conversation, Casman accepts the solution presented to her, and Bryn is still there by her side to make sure Casman is alright through the whole process of the solution. After this companion quest is completed, you can tell through the dialogue and voice inflections Casman has with Bryn and the others is way more trusting, comfortable, and confident. The character development put together with the voice acting and meaningful quests create a very high quality world building and relative experience. Also, on a side note, Casman's VA or voice actor is Rebecca Hansen, who also voices Eve in Stellar Blade, which was pretty cool to learn. The combat was a little clunky, a Souls-like experience, so to speak, with stamina, guarding, countering, and dodging being huge factors. The frame rates would drop significantly at times on my Xbox Series X when there was too much going on all at once, which made it difficult to iframe attacks from enemies at times, but it was smooth enough most of the time, and that still gave me an overall enjoyable experience. As far as the options you have with combat, you have the ability to hot swap between 3 different weapons: a sword and shield, a two-handed greatsword, and a bow. The armor is pretty standard: head, torso, legs, and arms. And as I mentioned earlier about farming materials for specific elements, you are able to craft and forge each weapon and armor piece in favor of defending against ice, fire, or a balance of both. Farming is pretty straightforward in this regard. Farm fire-based enemies and fire-based bosses for materials to build weapons and armor that defend well against heat and fire, and vice versa with ice-based minions or bosses. There is a third element, so to speak, that would be considered the more neutral or balanced playstyle, which is kinetic, a sort of telekinesis type of element that allows you to pick up objects and chuck them at enemies. Brynn, being a battle mage, has the ability to use magic with these 3 elements in conjunction with her physical weapons to create some really cool and effective elemental damage and effects against her foes. Even the weapons have their unique signature attacks that use magic to activate that weapon's specific element. For example, one of my favorites was the ice bow, which was able to shoot out up to 5 homing ice arrows once it was fully upgraded. As for your armor spread, you have different armor sets that give different bonus sets. One set of armor gives you bonus armor, which makes you more tanky, but it's bulky and makes you move a little slower. Another armor set has bonus heat resistance, which is less bulky, but you sacrifice being tankier for a higher base stat to heat resistance. However, some of the set bonuses did not have definitive values, which made it harder to judge if an armor set was actually worth wearing for that specific bonus. With that being said, the obvious thing to do, and what I did, was experiment with the set bonuses and how they affected my playstyle and the game mechanics. I found myself using a couple of set bonuses from 2 different armor sets that increased my max magic and magic regeneration. The graphics in a nutshell were fine. This is in no way a graphically intense game in the current and present standards of AAA games. They struck a pretty decent balance between graphics and art style though. One thing I really wish they had, and one of the first things I always look for in the settings, is a choice between graphics modes. A performance mode would have been a very nice touch to the overall experience, but by no means is a deal breaker. The game's benchmark performance was still above par, and this is an option they can add later down the road to improve future players' experiences. Overall, there are more things I like about Eternal Strands than I dislike, but this game performs well in, makes up for what it does not do great in, for the most part. It has a pretty engaging story and a cast of characters that are likable and memorable to back up the contents of the story, even though the dialogue and writing could be more approachable. The exploration was great at scale, and the way it was implemented made it an enjoyable and authentic experience. The repetitiveness of the gameplay loop did start to feel a little chore-like near the end of the story after about a 50-hour playthrough, but there were other systems in play like the weather system, meaningful quests, and enemy archetypes that helped balance that out. Combat was very enjoyable, but basic and clunky at times, with the capability to use magic and physical weapons seamlessly together, which streamlined 2 different types of playstyles into one. And I thought this was implemented very well. And the graphical performance was fine, but could be more refined and polished with the addition of a graphics fidelity option to choose between a more graphically intense or higher frame rate experience. If you are looking for a massive AAA experience with Eternal Strands, this is not that type of game. It definitely has that more indie AA experience and feel to it, which is in no way me saying that Yellow Brick Games did not do a great job with this game. It has charm and character, but realistic expectations with a game like this will help with the experience this game has to offer. In all honesty, I think it is best to go into this game with an open mind, not expecting too much and not expecting too little. And my overall positive experience leaves me recommending this game to you if you are still trying to decide if you want to play it or not. I think it's something that is worth your time. So please leave a comment letting me know if you have played Eternal Strands or not. I would love to hear about your experiences with this game, or if you are considering playing it now. Like the video as well if you enjoyed the review for Eternal Strands. Also, subscribe to the channel for more gaming reviews. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.